The message arrived on a quiet morning in the Empire's Central Command. It was short, it was simple, and it would change everything. You have taken our people. Return them within 30 standard days. If you do not, we will come for them, and we will destroy everything in our path. High Commander read the message 3 times. Then he laughed. He laughed so hard that tears formed in his 4 eyes. The officers around him joined in the laughter, though some of them looked nervous. Humans, said, shaking his large head. These tiny creatures think they can threaten the Empire that has conquered 600 worlds, the Empire that has ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. He deleted the message and returned to his morning meal. On the other side of the galaxy, Admiral Park stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Soul's Fury. She was a small woman with short black hair and eyes that had seen too much pain. Behind her, through the massive windows, she could see the fleet gathering. Ships arrived every hour. They came from Earth, from Mars, from the moon colonies, from the stations around Jupiter and Saturn. They came from every nation that had ever existed on humanity's home world. American ships flew beside Chinese vessels. Russian destroyers lined up next to European carriers. Ships from Africa, South America, Australia, and every corner of Earth joined the formation. Admiral, said Captain Ho Shin, her second in command. He was a tall man with a calm face, but his hands were tight fists at his sides. The fleet count has reached 200,000. More are coming. Nodded slowly. How many did we lose at New Seoul? Ho's jaw tightened. 43,000 dead, 18,000 taken as slaves, including your sister, finished. I know, my daughter was there too. They stood in silence for a moment. New Seoul had been humanity's largest colony outside the solar system. It had been a beautiful world of green mountains and blue oceans. The colonists had built cities that blended with nature. They had created art and music and raised their children under alien stars. Then they came without warning, without reason, without mercy. Their ships darkened the sky. Their soldiers marched through the streets. They killed anyone who fought back. They took the young and the strong as slaves. They burned the cities and poisoned the waters. When the rescue ships from Earth finally arrived, they found only ash and bones. They think we are weak, said quietly. They think we are a minor species, a young race that barely learned to travel between stars. They rated New Seoul like it was nothing, like our people were nothing. They will learn differently, Ho said. Yes, they will. In the Imperial Palace on Prime, Emperor sat on his throne of black crystal. He was the largest alive, standing 3 meters tall with scales the color of dried blood. His 4 arms rested on the arms of his throne, and his tail curled around its base like a sleeping snake. Tell me about these humans again, he said to his advisor, a thin named Bode Lo. They are a young species, great one. They discovered faster-than-light travel only 200 years ago. They have perhaps 50 colony worlds. Their military is small and primitive. They pose no threat to us. Then why did they send this message? Pride, great one, foolish pride. They lost a colony to our raiders. They are angry, but anger without power means nothing. Smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. Perhaps we should teach them a deeper lesson. Perhaps we should visit their home world next. An excellent idea, great one. Earth would make a fine addition to our slave markets. On the edge of space, a small observation station floated in the darkness between stars. Officer was bored. He had been assigned to this station as punishment for a minor mistake. Nothing ever happened here. Nothing ever would happen here. Then his sensors screamed. Jumped so hard he nearly fell out of his chair. He stared at his screen with all 4 eyes wide open. The numbers could not be right. They simply could not be right. Contact, he shouted into his communicator. Contact at the border, ships incoming. How many? Asked his commander's tired voice. Looked at the number again. His throat went dry. I must have a sensor error. The number cannot be correct. Just tell me the number. 300,000 ships, Commander, and more are arriving every second. There was a long silence. Then the commander's voice came back, no longer tired. Repeat that. 300,000 ships, human ships. They just appeared from hyperspace. They are heading toward space. On the bridge of the Soul's Fury, Admiral watched as the last ships of the fleet completed their jump. The formation stretched across space like a metal cloud. Each ship carried weapons designed by humanity's greatest scientists. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had left everything behind for this mission. All ships report ready, Ho announced. The fleet is assembled. How many? Asked, though she already knew. 312,000 ships of war, plus support vessels. It is the largest fleet ever assembled by any species in recorded galactic history. Allowed herself a small smile. When the raided New Soul, they thought we would cry and do nothing. They thought we were like the other species they had conquered, divided, weak, unable to unite. She turned to face her bridge crew. They were from every nation on Earth. Engineers from Korea worked beside tacticians from Brazil. Weapons officers from Nigeria coordinated with navigation teams from Japan. For the first time in human history, there were no nations. There was only humanity. They were wrong, continued. When they took our people, something changed. Every old conflict was forgotten. Every border disappeared. Every nation that ever existed joined together for one purpose, one mission. We are not here for revenge. We are here to bring our families home, and we will let nothing stop us. The crew stood. Their eyes burned with determination. Open a channel, ordered. Let them hear our voice once more. The communication officer worked quickly. Channel open, Admiral, broadcasting to all frequencies. Stepped forward. Her voice was calm and cold. This is Admiral Park of the United Human Fleet. We sent you a warning. You ignored it. You laughed at us. You thought we were weak because we are small. You thought we would accept the loss of our colony. You were wrong. She paused, letting her words sink in. We are coming now, all of us. Every human who can hold a weapon is on these ships. We have emptied our worlds. We have put aside every difference. We have become one people with one purpose. Return our families to us and we will show mercy. Refuse, and we will show you why humans should never be underestimated. She made a cutting gesture, and the channel closed. In the Imperial Palace, Emperor watched the human fleet on a massive screen. His advisor stood beside him, trembling. How many ships? Asked quietly. Over 300,000, Great One. Our entire navy numbers only 100,000. Was silent for a long moment. Then he stood from his throne. Mobilize everything. Call back every ship from every corner of the Empire. Contact our allies. We will crush these humans like insects. Great One, perhaps we should consider returning their slaves. Perhaps. Silence, roared. The Empire does not surrender. The Empire does not negotiate with lesser species. We will destroy them, all of them. And then we will take their precious Earth and make slaves of every human who lives. On her bridge, watched the tactical display. She could see the ships beginning to move. They were gathering their forces. They will not surrender, Ho observed. No, they will not. Then they will die. Thought of her daughter. Young had been only 22 years old. She had gone to New Seoul to be a teacher. She had wanted to help the colony's children learn about Earth's history and culture. Now she was a slave somewhere in the Empire if she was still alive at all. Send the order to all ships, said. We move at dawn. No retreat. No hesitation. We fight until our people are free or until every last human ship is destroyed. The order went out across the fleet. 300,000 captains received it. 300,000 crews prepared for battle. 300,000 ships began to move as one, like a wave of steel and fire rolling toward the Empire. The galaxy had never seen anything like it. The galaxy would never forget it. In his palace, watched the human fleet begin its advance. For the first time in his long life, something cold touched his heart. He told himself it was not fear. The Emperor did not feel fear. But his hands were shaking. And on the Soul's fury, Admiral Park watched the stars ahead and whispered a promise to her daughter. "I am coming, young. Hold on, your mother is coming." The war had begun. The first defense line stood at the system. 50,000 ships waited there, commanded by Admiral, the most decorated officer in the Empire's history. He had conquered worlds. He had destroyed rebellions. He had never lost a battle. He stared at his tactical display and felt his confidence fade. The human fleet appeared on his sensors like a swarm of angry insects. They filled the space ahead of him from horizon to horizon. His ships were larger, yes. His weapons were more powerful, according to his engineers, but the numbers were simply overwhelming. "All ships hold position," commanded. "Let them come to us. We have the advantage of defense." His officers obeyed, but he could smell their fear. Had strong noses, and fear had a very particular smell. At the front of the human formation, Captain Ho Shin commanded the vanguard fleet. 10,000 ships followed his vessel, the Vengeance. These were the fastest ships in the human navy, designed for quick strikes and rapid movement. "Enemy fleet ahead," his sensor officer reported. 50,000 ships in defensive formation. Ho studied the enemy positions on his display. They had arranged themselves in a classic sphere formation, with their largest ships in the center and smaller vessels protecting the outer edges. It was a strong formation. It had worked for them for thousands of years. "They expect us to attack the center," Ho said. "They expect us to waste our ships against their strongest point." His tactical officer, lieutenant, looked up from her station. "Sir, I have studied their formations from the records we captured. They always defend the same way. They never change." "Because they have never needed to change," Ho said. "They have always been the strongest. They have always won. They do not know how to adapt." He opened a channel to his fleet. "All ships prepare for Pattern 7. We split into 3 groups. Groups 1 and 2 will strike the flanks. Group 3 will dive below the formation and hit them from underneath. Speed is everything. Hit them and move. Do not stop for anything." His ships began to rearrange themselves. They watched in confusion as the human formation split apart. Admiral frowned. "What are they doing?" "Unknown, sir," his tactical officer replied. "They are breaking into smaller groups. Perhaps they are retreating." "Humans do not retreat," said. "I have read the reports from New Seoul. They fought to the last person. No, they are planning something." Before he could guess what it was, the human ships attacked. They came from 3 directions at once, moving faster than any ships had ever seen. His sensors could barely track them. His gunners could barely aim at them. They were like lightning, striking and moving before anyone could react. "Fire, fire at will," screamed. His ships opened fire, filling space with green plasma. But the humans were too fast. They danced between the shots. They twisted and turned in ways that should have been impossible. And when they fired back, they did not miss. Human missiles slammed into ships with terrible accuracy. Human cannons tore through armor that was supposed to be unbreakable. Human fighters swarmed around the larger vessels like deadly flies, targeting engines and weapons and bridges. Ho watched his display as ships began to explode. 1, then 10, then 50. His gunners were the best humanity had ever produced. They had trained for this moment for 2 years. They knew exactly where to hit the enemy ships for maximum damage. "Group 2, shift to Sector 7, he ordered. "Group 3, continue pressure from below. Do not let them reorganize." The battle became chaos. They tried to maintain their formation, but the humans kept attacking from different angles. Every time tried to focus his fire on one group, another group would strike from behind. "How are they so fast?" demanded. How are their weapons so accurate? His tactical officer had no answer. The Empire had always had superior technology. They had always been ahead of every other species. But these human ships were something new, something different. On this Vengeance, Lieutenant tracked the enemy flagship on her sensors. It was a massive vessel, twice the size of anything in the human fleet. Admiral was on that ship. She could see his command signals going out to his fleet. "Sir, I have located the enemy commander," she reported. Ho looked at the target. Attacking the flagship directly would be dangerous. It had the strongest shields and the most weapons, but if they could take it out. "All group leaders focus on the flagship. Draw their attention. I am going in." His crew looked at him with wide eyes. Going directly at the enemy flagship was almost suicide, but they had all volunteered for this mission. They had all known they might not come back. "Yes, sir," said quietly. Then she added, "My brother was on New Sol. Let me come with you." Ho nodded. "All bridge crew, you are with me. Everyone else prepare to abandon ship if necessary." This Vengeance broke from the formation and accelerated toward the flagship. Around them, other human ships created chaos, drawing fire away from Ho's vessel. They sacrificed themselves to give him a clear path. Saw the small human ship coming toward him. "Destroy that vessel," he commanded. Every gun on his flagship turned toward this Vengeance. Green plasma filled the space ahead of Ho's ship. The shields flashed and flickered under the assault. "Shields at 40%, the engineering officer reported. "Keep going," Ho said. "Shields at 20%. "Keep going." "Shields at 5%, they will fail in." The shields failed. The next plasma shot hit the hull directly, tearing through metal and killing 3 crew members instantly. Alarms screamed. Fire erupted in the lower decks. But they were close now, so close. "Fire everything," Ho ordered. This Vengeance released its entire payload. Missiles, cannon rounds, torpedoes, everything the ship had left flew toward the flagship. At this range, even the strongest shields could not stop them all. The flagship shook as explosions ripped through its hull. The bridge where stood cracked and broke. Air rushed out into space. Admiral, the greatest commander in history, died still not understanding how he had lost. When the flagship exploded, the rest of the fleet fell into panic. Without their commander, without their formation, they became easy targets. Human ships hunted them down one by one. The battle lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the first defense line no longer existed. Ho sat in his damaged chair, breathing hard. His ship was barely functional. Half his crew was dead or wounded, but they had won. "Report," he said weakly. Looked up from her station. Her face was covered in blood from a cut on her forehead, but she was smiling. "Enemy fleet destroyed. We lost 2,000 ships. They lost all 50,000. 2,000 human ships, 20,000 lives. It was a terrible cost, but they had destroyed the enemy completely." "Contact Admiral Park," Ho said. "Tell her the path is clear." On the Soul's Fury received the message with a mix of pride and sorrow. 2,000 ships lost. So many families who would never see their loved ones again. But the victory was real. The Empire had suffered its first major defeat in thousands of years. "Send reinforcements to Captain Shin's fleet," she ordered. "Give them time to repair and rest. Then we move to the next system." Her tactical officer looked at the map of space. "Admiral, our scouts report 4 more defense lines between here and Prime. Each one is larger than the last." "Then we will break them all," said, "one by one, until we reach their home world." She looked at the stars ahead. Somewhere out there, her daughter was waiting. Somewhere out there, 18,000 humans were suffering in slave pits. "Broadcast to the fleet," she said. "Tell them what Captain Shin and his people did today. Tell them about the victory, and tell them this is only the beginning." In the Imperial Palace, Emperor received news of the defeat with cold silence. His advisor was trembling so badly he could barely stand. "Admiral is dead," reported. "The entire First Defense Fleet is destroyed. The humans are advancing into our territory." Said nothing. His four hands gripped the arms of his throne until the crystal cracked. "Great One, perhaps now we should consider—" "Bring me General," interrupted, "and summon the Council of War. We will destroy these humans if we have to burn the entire galaxy to do it." Bowed and hurried away. He had served the Emperor for 50 years. He had never seen fear in those ancient eyes before. Until today. On a slave world deep in space, a young human woman looked up at the sky. Her name was Young, and she had once been a teacher on New Sol. Now she worked in the mines, digging for precious metals until her hands bled. But today something felt different. The guards seemed nervous. They whispered to each other in their hissing language. An older human man worked beside her. His name was Dongha, and he had been a soldier before his capture. "Something is happening," he said quietly. "The guards are scared." "Scared of what?" Young asked. "I do not know, but I heard them say something about human ships, many human ships." Young felt something she had not felt in 2 years. Hope, small and fragile like a candle flame in the wind, but it was there. "My mother is a naval officer," she whispered. "She would never stop looking for me. Never." Dongha looked at the young woman with sad eyes. He had seen too many slaves die hopping for rescue that never came, but he did not want to destroy her hope. "Perhaps," he said gently, "perhaps they are coming." High above them, beyond the atmosphere of that slave world, patrol ships watched nervously. They had heard about the battle at System. They had heard that the unbeatable admiral was dead. They had heard that humanity was coming. And they were afraid. The news spread through the empire like fire through dry grass. The humans had broken through. Admiral was dead. The first defense line had fallen in hours. For the first time in 10,000 years, the citizens of the empire knew fear. In the Imperial Council chambers, Emperor met with his generals and advisors. The room was full of the most powerful beings in the galaxy, but they all looked like frightened children. General stood before the council. He was old, even by standards, and his scales had turned with age. But his mind was still sharp, and he had won more battles than any living commander. "The humans fight like nothing we have ever seen," reported. "They do not follow normal battle tactics. They do not care about losses. They attack from every direction at once. Our formations cannot hold against them." "Then change the formations," said coldly. "We have tried, Great One, but their ships are faster than ours. Their weapons are more accurate, and they have something we do not understand." "What?" Paused, searching for the right words. "They fight together, perfectly together. Ships from different human nations coordinate like they share one mind. We have never seen such unity from any species." A young general named spoke up. "Perhaps we should target their home world. If we destroy Earth, they will lose the will to fight." Shook his head. "We have tried to send ships toward Earth. The humans anticipated this. They left a defensive fleet of 100,000 ships around their home system. Anyone who tries to attack Earth will be destroyed." Emperor slammed his fist on the table, cracking its surface. "Then what do you suggest, General? Should we surrender? Should the Empire bow to these insects?" "No, Great One, but we must be smart. We must gather all our forces at Prime, every ship from every corner of the Empire. We make our stand here at the heart of our territory. Let them come to us." The council debated for hours. Some wanted to attack, some wanted to flee, some wanted to negotiate. In the end, accepted's plan. All ships would return home. But even as the orders went out, the humans kept advancing. Captain led her squadron through the wreckage of the second defense line. Her ship, this Pride, was from battle but still functional. Around her, the remains of thousands of vessels drifted in the darkness. Confirmed, her sensor officer reported. Enemy fleet destroyed, no survivors. Felt no joy in the victory. She thought of her brother, taken from New Seoul. She thought of the slaves still waiting for rescue. Every moment they spent fighting was another moment those people suffered. Signal, the Admiral said. Tell her the second line is broken. We await orders. On the Seoul's Fury, Admiral received the report with grim satisfaction. 2 defense lines down, 3 more to go, and then Prime itself. How long until we reach the 3rd line? She asked. Her navigator checked her calculations. 12 hours at current speed, Admiral. And the enemy? They are retreating. All forces are pulling back toward their home system. They are abandoning their outer territories. Ho Shin stood beside, his arm in a sling from the injuries he had received at the first battle. They are giving up their empire to defend their home world. They are scared, Admiral, really scared. Good, said, they should be. She looked at the tactical display. The human fleet had lost ships at each battle, but new vessels kept arriving from Earth. Factories across the human worlds were working day and night, building more ships, more weapons, more supplies. The entire human species had dedicated itself to this war. There were no politicians arguing about costs. There were no protests about the military spending. Every human knew what they had done. Every human wanted justice. Signal all ships, ordered. We do not slow down. We do not stop. The enemy is retreating, and we will chase them all the way to their throne room if we must. The fleet accelerated into the darkness. On the slave world where Young worked, everything changed overnight. The guards received orders to evacuate. They were needed for the defense of the home world. The slaves were to be left behind. Young watched as the guards loaded onto transport ships and flew away. For the first time in 2 years, there was no one watching them, no one hitting them, no one telling them what to do. The older man, Dong-ha, gathered the human slaves together. There were almost 2,000 of them on this world, survivors from various colonies that they had raided. Listen to me, Dong-ha said. The guards are gone. We do not know when they will return or if they will return at all, but we must be ready. If our people are coming for us, we need to survive until they arrive. A young boy, barely 15 years old, raised his hand. How do we know anyone is coming? Dong-ha looked at Young. She stepped forward, her voice stronger than it had been in months. Because I know my mother, she said. She is a naval officer. She would never leave me here. She would tear the galaxy apart to find me, and if she is coming, she is bringing everyone with her. The slaves began to organize. They found food stored by the guards. They found medical supplies. They even found weapons, not many, but enough to defend themselves if necessary. Young looked up at the sky and whispered, "Hurry, Mom, please hurry." The 3rd defense line fell even faster than the first 2. They were demoralized and frightened. Their commanders made mistakes. Their soldiers hesitated when they should have fought. General watched the battle from his command ship near Prime. He had hoped the 3rd line would slow the humans down. Instead, it collapsed in just 4 hours. They are learning, he said quietly. Every battle they learn more about our tactics. Every battle they become harder to fight. His aide looked at him nervously. General, some of the officers are talking about surrender. They say we cannot win this war. Turned his cold eyes on the aide. Tell those officers that the Emperor will execute anyone who speaks of surrender. We fight to the last ship, to the last soldier. That is the way. But in his heart knew the truth. They could not win. The humans were too many, too determined, too united. The Empire had made a terrible mistake when it attacked New Seoul. It had awakened something that could not be stopped. On the Seoul's Fury, allowed herself a moment of rest. She sat in her quarters, looking at a photograph of her daughter. Young smiled at her from the picture, young and happy, ready to start her new life as a teacher on New Seoul. That had been 3 years ago, before the attack, before everything changed. I am coming, Young whispered. Hold on a little longer, I am almost there. A knock came at her door. It was Ho, his face serious. Admiral, our scouts have reported in. The fourth defense line is heavily fortified, more ships than the first 3 lines combined, and General is commanding personally. Said, I have read about him. He is supposed to be their best strategist. He is, but our people have a plan. Lieutenant has been studying tactics. She believes she has found a weakness. Stood up, putting the photograph away. Show me. They walked to the tactical room where waited with several other officers. Displayed a map of the 4th defense line on the main screen. They always defend in spheres, explained. They put their strongest ships in the center and weaker ships on the outside. General has arranged his fleet the same way, but on a much larger scale. And the weakness, asked. Pointed to a spot on the map. Here, the supply ships. They are at the back of the formation, barely protected. If we can break through and destroy their supplies, the main fleet will be forced to retreat or starve. Ho frowned. Breaking through will not be easy. We would have to go through the entire enemy formation. Not through, said. Around. We take a small, fast force and circle around the battle. While the main fleet engages from the front, we hit the supply ships from behind. Studied the plan carefully. It was risky. The small force would be vulnerable if the enemy noticed them, but if it worked, it could end the battle quickly and save thousands of lives. Do it, decided. Captain, you will lead the strike force. Take the fastest ships we have. Wait for my signal, then hit those supply ships with everything you have. Saluted. Yes, Admiral, we will not fail. As the human fleet prepared for the 4th battle, General watched from his command ship. He had studied every report from the previous battles. He knew how the humans fought. He thought he understood them. But there was one thing he did not understand, one question that kept him awake at night. Why did they fight so hard? Why did they risk everything for a few thousand slaves? In the Empire, slaves were property. They were tools to be used and discarded. No one would go to war to rescue tools. But humans were different. They valued every single life. They would not leave anyone behind. That was their strength. And it was something they would never understand. As the 2 fleets moved toward each other, as millions of lives hung in the balance, one fact was becoming clear to everyone in the galaxy. Humanity could not be stopped, and the Empire was about to learn the price of their cruelty. The 4th defense line broke in 6 hours. General fought with everything he had, but strike force destroyed his supply ships before he could react. Without fuel and ammunition, his great fleet became helpless. Died on his command ship, still giving orders, still believing he could win. His last words were a curse against the humans who had destroyed his empire's greatest fleet. Now nothing stood between humanity and Prime. Admiral Park stood on the bridge of the Soul's Fury as her fleet entered the home system. Through the windows, she could see the planet that had caused so much suffering. It was a large world, green and blue like Earth, surrounded by rings of orbital stations and defense platforms. Report, she ordered. Enemy forces are concentrated around the planet, Ho replied. Approximately 80,000 ships remain. They have activated all planetary defenses. The Emperor has ordered every citizen to fight to the death. Nodded slowly. They had lost many ships in the previous battles, but they still outnumbered the 3-1. The outcome was not in doubt. The only question was how many would die before it was over. Open a channel to the planet, she said. Let me speak to their Emperor one last time. The communication screen flickered and Emperor appeared. He looked different from the images had seen. Older, tired. His scales had lost their shine and his 4 eyes were red from lack of sleep. Admiral Park, he said, you have come far, but this is where your journey ends. Prime will never fall to humans. Your fleets are destroyed, replied calmly. Your generals are dead. You have no allies left. Surrender now and we will show mercy. Release all human slaves and we will leave your world in peace. Laughed, but there was no humor in it. Mercy. You speak of mercy after you have killed millions of my people. You have burned your way across my empire like a fire, and now you want me to surrender. We came for our people, you took them. You enslaved them. You have only yourself to blame for what happened. They were just slaves, shouted. Property, tools. Why would you destroy an empire for tools? His voice went cold. Because they are not tools, they are our families, our children, our brothers and sisters. Every single one of them matters more than your entire empire. That is something you will never understand. Stared at her through the screen. Then come and try to take your precious families. We will fight you in space. We will fight you in the skis. We will fight you in the streets. And we will make you pay for every step you take. The screen went dark. Well, Ho said quietly, I guess we are doing this the hard way. We were always going to do it the hard way, replied. Signal all ships, begin the attack. The final battle for Prime began at dawn. Human ships poured into the system from every direction, their weapons blazing. Defenders fought back with desperate fury. Space became a hell of fire and death. Ships exploded like stars being born and dying in the same instant. Debris filled the space around the planet until it looked like a ring of metal and bodies. General Dong-ha Lee commanded the ground forces. He was a veteran of many campaigns, a hard man who had seen the worst of war. His troops were packed into landing ships, waiting for the moment to descend. The orbital defenses are weakening, his aide reported. Admiral Park has created an opening. Dong-ha nodded. All landing ships prepare for descent. Target zones are the slave processing centers. We locate our people and get them out. Everything else is secondary. The landing ships dove through the atmosphere, their heat shields glowing orange from the friction. Anti-aircraft weapons shot down dozens of them, but hundreds more got through. Dong-ha's ship hit the ground hard and he was first out the door. The capital city stretched before him, a massive place of black towers and wide streets. Smoke rose from burning buildings. The sound of weapons fire echoed from every direction. Move, he shouted. Stay together, find the slaves. His soldiers advanced through the city, fighting for every block. Soldiers appeared from buildings and alleys, attacking with the fury of people defending their home. They died bravely, but they died nonetheless. In space, watched the planetary battle unfold on her tactical display. Small dots represented landing ships and ground forces. Larger dots showed enemy positions being overrun. Admiral, her communication officer called. We are receiving a transmission from the surface. It is General Lee. Put him through. Dong-ha's face appeared on screen. He was dirty and wounded, blood running down the side of his face, but his eyes were bright with excitement. Admiral, we found them. We found the main slave center. There are thousands of humans here. They are alive. His heart jumped in her chest. Can you confirm identities? Is there a list? We are working on it, but Admiral, Dong-ha paused and his voice softened. There is a young woman here. She says her name is Park Young. She says she is looking for her mother. Could not speak. Her throat closed up and tears filled her eyes. For 2 years she had not known if her daughter was alive or dead. For 2 years she had forced herself to keep going, to keep fighting, without knowing if there was any hope. Tell her, whispered. Tell her I am coming. Tell her to wait for me. I will, Admiral Lee out. The screen went dark and allowed herself one moment of joy, one moment of relief. Then she straightened her uniform and returned to commanding the battle. There was still fighting to be done. On the surface, Young stood in the courtyard of the slave center, surrounded by thousands of other freed humans. She had heard the message. Her mother was coming. Dong-ha's soldiers had given her food and water and a blanket to wrap around her thin shoulders. They had treated her wounds and told her she was safe now. but she would not feel truly safe until she saw her mother's face. Young, a soldier approached her. "The general asked me to stay with you. The admiral is on her way down." "My mother is really here." "She is really here. She commanded this entire fleet. She led us across the galaxy to find you." Young started to cry, not from sadness this time, but from something else, something she had almost forgotten how to feel. In the imperial palace, Emperor watched his empire crumble. The human ground forces had taken the capital. His fleet was destroyed. His generals were dead. There was nowhere left to run. His advisor stood beside him, trembling as always. "Great One, the humans are at the palace gates. We should flee. There is still time to escape to the outer territories." Escape stood from his broken throne. The Emperor does not flee. The Emperor does not surrender. If this is the end, then I will face it standing. He picked up an ancient sword that had belonged to his ancestors. It had not been used in battle for 1,000 years. It felt heavy in his hands. "I will kill their admiral," he said. "I will cut out her heart, and my people will remember that died fighting." Looked at the old emperor with something like pity. "Yes, Great One, they will remember." The palace doors exploded inward, and human soldiers poured through. They moved with precision, clearing each room, taking no chances. Admiral Park walked through the destruction with her personal guard. She had come down from her ship to see the end with her own eyes, and to find her daughter. "Admiral," a soldier called, "we have located the Emperor, throne room, upper level." "I am coming," said. "Guard the exits, no one leaves." She climbed the stairs to the throne room alone. Her guards protested, but she waved them off. This was something she needed to do herself. Was waiting for her. He stood before his throne, sword in hand, his 4 eyes burning with hatred. "Admiral Park," he said, "so you have come to kill me yourself." "I have come to end this," replied. "Your empire is finished. Your fleet is destroyed. Your people are defeated. It is over." "Then fight me," raised his sword. "Fight me like a warrior. Give me an honorable death." Looked at the ancient sword. She looked at the old emperor standing alone in his ruined throne room. She felt no hatred. She felt nothing at all. "No," she said simply. "No, you refuse to fight. You do not deserve an honorable death. You enslaved my people. You killed my friends. You took my daughter from me. You do not get to die a warrior." She raised her pistol and shot him once through the chest. Fell backward, his sword clattering to the floor. He looked up with shock and confusion. This was not how it was supposed to end. This was not how emperors died. You cannot," he gasped. "I can," said, "and I did. Goodbye." She turned and walked away without looking back. Outside the palace, her soldiers had gathered thousands of prisoners. Officials, military officers, anyone who had been involved in the slave trade. They would face trial. They would face justice. But did not care about them. She only cared about one thing. Admiral Dongha ran toward her. "The transports are ready. The freed slaves are being loaded now." "Where is she?" asked. Her voice was shaking. Dongha smiled. "This way." He led her through the crowds to a small ship at the edge of the landing zone. Standing beside it, wrapped in a blanket, was a thin young woman with short hair and tired eyes. Young stopped. For a moment she could not move. She could only stare at her daughter alive, standing before her after 2 years of hopping and praying and fighting. Then Young saw her. Her eyes went wide. Her mouth opened in a cry that was half laugh and half sob. "Mom!" She ran. They met in the middle and held each other so tightly that neither could breathe. They cried. They laughed. They said nothing at all because words were not enough. Around them, soldiers stopped to watch. Hard men and women who had fought through hell to get here. Some of them cried too. This was why they had come. This was what they had been fighting for. Not revenge, not conquest. Family. The war was over. The empire had fallen. For the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy was free from their rule. Admiral Park stood on a balcony overlooking what remained of the capital city. Below her, human engineers worked alongside former slaves to rebuild what had been destroyed. Ships from Earth landed constantly, bringing supplies and medical teams and hope. Young stood beside her mother, still thin from her years of slavery, but growing stronger every day. She had not left side since their reunion. Neither of them wanted to be apart ever again. "What happens now?" Young asked quietly. Thought about the question. The war had been simple in many ways. They had an enemy. They had a goal. They fought until they won. But peace was more complicated. Peace required thinking about the future. "We rebuild," said. "We help our people recover, and we make sure this never happens again." And looked at the city. The civilians had not fought. Most of them had simply been caught up in an empire they did not ask for and did not control. They were not evil. They were just people. "They will have to change," she said. "No more slaves. No more conquering. If they want to exist in this galaxy, they must learn to live with others, not rule over them." 2 weeks later, a conference was held on a neutral space station. Representatives from every known species attended. Humans, and dozens of others crowded into a great hall to discuss the future. Admiral was chosen to speak for humanity. She had become the most famous human in the galaxy, the woman who had led her people across the stars to rescue their families and destroy an empire. When she entered the hall, every eye turned to her. She walked to the central platform and looked out at the assembled species. Some looked at her with fear, some with respect, some with curiosity. They all wanted to know what humanity would do next. "Thank you for coming," began. "I know many of you are afraid. You have seen what humanity can do when we are united. You have seen our ships and our weapons and our willingness to fight. Perhaps you wonder if you will be next." The hall was silent. No one dared to speak. "Let me be clear about something," continued. "We did not come to the stars to conquer. We did not build this fleet to rule. We only wanted to live in peace, to explore, to learn. When the Empire attacked our colony and took our people, we had to respond. We had no choice. But now that the war is over, we have choices again." She paused, letting her words sink in. "Humanity chooses peace. We will not take territory. We will not enslave citizens. We will not seek revenge against those who were only following orders. All we ask is that our people are returned to us and that the slave trade ends forever." A murmur ran through the crowd. This was not what they expected. They expected demands. They expected threats. They expected the conqueror to act like a conqueror. "But let me also be clear about something else," said, and her voice grew hard. "If anyone attacks our people again, if anyone takes our families, if anyone treats humans as property to be bought and sold, we will come for you, we will find you, and we will do what we did to the Empire." She looked at the representatives, meeting their eyes one by one. "We did not want this war. We did not enjoy this war, but we won this war, and we will win any war that is forced upon us. That is not a threat, it is a fact. We are humanity, we protect our own." She stepped back from the platform. For a long moment, no one moved. Then a representative from a small species called began to applaud. Another joined. Then another. Soon the entire hall was filled with the sound of clapping and cheering. Not because they feared humanity, because they respected it. After the conference, returned to Earth for the first time in 2 years. Her ship landed in New Sol, which was being rebuilt from the ashes of the original colony. New buildings rose where old ones had fallen. Gardens grew where plasma had burned. Young walked beside her through the streets of the new city. Everything was different, yet somehow the same. The mountains still rose in the distance. The sun still set over the ocean. Life continued. "I want to teach here again," Young said. "When the new schools open, I want to help the children understand what happened, what we went through, why it matters." Smiled, I think that is a wonderful idea. They walked to a small park at the edge of the city. A monument was being built there, a tall stone pillar with the names of everyone who had died in the attack. 43,000 names. Some were soldiers. Most were just ordinary people who had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Young found her friends among the names, teachers she had worked with, children she had taught, neighbors who had invited her for dinner. She touched their names gently, saying a silent goodbye. So many people, she whispered, so many lost. But not forgotten, said, never forgotten. Captain Ho Shin found them there. His arm had healed and he walked without difficulty now. He had been offered a promotion to admiral, but he had refused. He said he was happy commanding his ship. Admiral, he said with a salute, the last transport has arrived. All human slaves have been returned from space. The mission is complete. Closed her eyes. 18,000 people scattered across the empire had been found and brought home. Some were in bad condition. Some would never fully recover. But they were alive. They were free. They were home. Thank you, Captain, she said. Thank you for everything. Ho smiled. I should thank you, Admiral. My sister was on one of those transports. She is alive because of you. She is alive because of everyone, every soldier, every pilot, every engineer, every person who built a ship or packed a supply crate or said a prayer. We did this together. That night there was a celebration. Not a grand military parade, but a quiet gathering of survivors. They shared food and stories and memories of those they had lost. They laughed and cried and held each other close. Sat with Young under the stars of New Seoul, the same stars that had witnessed the attack, the same stars that had watched humanity's fleet cross the galaxy, the same stars that would shine for millions of years to come. Mom, Young said softly, do you think they will ever attack us again, or anyone else? Looked up at the sky. Somewhere out there, the galaxy continued its slow dance of light and darkness. New empires would rise. Old conflicts would fade. The universe would keep turning regardless of what any species did. I do not know, she admitted. The galaxy is a big place and there are many dangers, but I know one thing for certain. What? They know who we are now. They know what we will do to protect our families. And they know that humanity is not a species to be underestimated. She put her arm around her daughter and held her close. We came to the stars looking for a new home. We found something else instead. We found out who we really are. Not just Americans or Koreans or Africans or Europeans. We are humans, all of us. One people, one family. Young leaned against her mother's shoulder. One family, she repeated. I like that. Above them, the stars continued to shine. Ships passed overhead, bringing more supplies and more people to help rebuild. Messages traveled between worlds, carrying news of peace and hope. The war was over. Humanity had won. But the real victory was not the destruction of the empire. The real victory was the discovery that when humans stood together, nothing in the galaxy could defeat them. And in the dark spaces between stars, other species watched and learned. They saw what humanity had done. They saw the ships and the soldiers and the determination. They saw the love that had driven a mother across the galaxy to find her daughter. Some of them were afraid. Some of them were inspired. All of them understood that the galaxy would never be the same. Admiral Park looked at the stars one last time, then turned and walked home with her daughter. The war was over. The future was beginning. And humanity was ready for whatever came next.